The day I'm filming this is February 17th, 2022, and in the state of Alabama, that's an important day for some very specific families. Let's take a look at AL.com together. District Attorney Darrell D. Bailey of Alabama held Alabama's first ever Missing Persons Day in Montgomery's Attorney General's office February 17th to bring awareness of the 170 people still missing in the state. Training was held for both law enforcement and the families of missing persons to better equip themselves in the search. Quote, "Our goal is that this information will assist law enforcement in providing the families of missing persons with answers. We're also using this day to provide families with the opportunity to gather together and share experiences and allow them to submit familial DNA profiles to help search for additional information on their loved ones," Bailey said. "If, by holding this event, we have helped solve one missing persons case, then our efforts would have been worthwhile." One of the people that is appreciating that today is Alabama's Missing Persons Day is this woman who you can tell in this photo has an extremely broken heart. Her name is Tillis James, and she hasn't seen her son, George James, for over 2 decades at this point. Area mother continues search. Tillis James asked the general public to live her life for one day, to close their eyes and imagine their child walking out the front door and never coming home. "That's what we wake up for every day," she said, "for that reason." James's son, George Erick James, has been missing for 15 years as of when this article was published. That was back in 2013. Tillis needs help in her search for her son, George James. She's asking for an army, and I think I just signed up, and I hope many of you will too after seeing today's episode. It's time to turn on the searchlight for George Erick James. Welcome back to Brainscratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for caring about these cases like I do. George Erick James, a young man, a man who maybe didn't make all the best turns in life, but was looking to get out of some trouble. Did the trouble catch up to him? That's what his family is wondering at this point. But let's go ahead and take a look together, starting at a Facebook post from Tillis James. This posted just 8 hours ago. "Today is Alabama's Missing Persons Day. Rise up and join us in remembering in prayer our missing and their families. Those of us left behind relive the day every day our loved one was taken. Please join the celebration at the Riverfront Park on Saturday. Info below." That's tomorrow. So if any of you are in this area, there's the information that you need to get out there to help support Tillis, as well as many other families dealing with missing loved ones. 170 is the date of when they started this Missing Persons Day. That was several years ago. There's more cases at this point. I believe it's closer to 200 at this point for ongoing missing persons cases in Alabama. But we're here to look at one in particular, and that is George James. Let's get started by learning about this case at NamUs. Here's the profile for George Erick James, a white Caucasian male. Date of last contact, November 23rd, 1998, 3 days before Thanksgiving. Missing from Millbrook, Alabama at the age of 22. His current age would be 45. They've got a nickname listed for him here of Caesar. They note he is 6'1" and weighs between 170 to 180 pounds, at least at the time that he went missing. And we can see it took a while for the NamUs. Of course, NamUs got started in 2007, 2008. So it was about a year after that this profile was created. Circumstances of disappearance. James was last seen in Montgomery, Alabama on November 23rd, 1998. Witnesses say they saw James make a telephone call at a nearby convenience store. He's never been heard from again. I put some quotes around nearby. I believe that telephone call actually happened a bit outside of Montgomery, Alabama. We'll get to those details. Circumstance notes, they're saying George is considered endangered missing. For physical description, we have sandy hair, cropped hair description, a light mustache. Actually, in this photo on the screen, you can see just a little bit, very, very light. Blue eyes. They're saying also hound dog eyes. I think they're just talking about the general shape. And for distinct physical features, we do have several tattoos. He has a lighthouse tattooed on his chest. He has a skull tattooed on the right side of his neck. There's a photo of it. We're also going to keep that rolling in the photos right below me, since that's a pretty identifiable mark, and I think something that someone might notice. He has the word brick tattooed on his right arm and the name Robin tattooed on the underside of his right forearm. So also more tattoos on his right arm. Clothing and accessories, no information. Unfortunately, I haven't run into any additional information to help with that. Transportation, there is a vehicle that he goes off with. The vehicle is at one point recovered. Of course, we're going to go ahead and talk about that as well. But where is this taking place? Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery is the capital city of the U.S. state of Alabama and the county seat of Montgomery County. It stands beside the Alabama River on the coastal plain of the Gulf of Mexico. In the 2020 census, Montgomery's population was over 200,000 people. It's the third most populous city in Alabama. So why is this coming up now? There's been a push just as of about a week ago, and it's a new release that has come out. You're going to see several articles about it, but they're all pretty much saying the same thing. $5,000 reward offered in 1998 missing persons case. Central Alabama Crime Stoppers is offering a $5,000 reward for information in a decades-old missing persons case. And I just want to take a moment to talk about how Crime Stoppers works. That's one of the things we always promote here on the channel because it's a way for you to get information in anonymously. So if you're thinking about it and you're really not buying this, oh, how are they going to get me $5,000 and keep me anonymous? Here's what happens. You call in the information, you speak to someone. They don't try to trace you, no funny business, nothing like that. They give you a randomized number based on the tip that you gave them. You hold on to that number. If you see that the case gets solved, you call back, you tell them that number, they verify, yes, that's the information that we used to solve this case, and then they work out payment arrangements with you at that point. So it's all anonymous, and they're stepping up with $5,000 to try to help figure out what happened to George. Continuing at the article, James was seen in Montgomery before his disappearance. It was originally thought that he might have gone to Florida or Mobile, but he hasn't been seen since. Police say he was familiar with both areas because of construction type work that he had done. James goes by the names George Erick Conquest or Caesar. So we're getting an additional nickname that wasn't used over on NamUs. That's why I wanted to be sure to include this. George Erick Conquest as well as Caesar. We're going to have to lean on newspapers.com a little bit. Obviously, there's not as much digital information about this case as there are older news articles. So starting here at the Montgomery Advertiser from May 3rd, 2002, just a little additional detail. A Montgomery Police Department missing persons flyer on James says he might have gone to Mobile. It identifies him as a known gang member and says his street name is Caesar and that he also goes by George Conquest and Caesar James. So we've got different ways that the names might be used there. One of the things I'm seeing, just one particular note, is that he might have been trying to escape this gang lifestyle. And that's one of the concerns that we have in this case. Did that catch up with him? We'll get into more details why that seems to be a possible consideration in this case. But over at the Charlie Project, once again, just noting his age at this point would be 45 years old. Let's get some additional details. James was last seen in Montgomery, Alabama on November 23rd, 1998. He had an argument with his mother and left her home angrily. I haven't run into any information about what that argument was or what their last conversation was. By the end of this video, I'm going to tell you guys a source that you'll be able to follow up on. It's just not ready yet, but I believe that you'll probably get some insight into that. He was carrying somewhere between $6,000 and $14,000 in cash on him when he disappeared. A married girlfriend had allegedly given him the money so he could move away and start a new life. So we've got some entanglement going on just in this one statement. First of all, why do we have such a wide discrepancy in terms of the cash? I don't know. I would like to think that investigators found this married girlfriend, possibly interviewed her. So I don't know why this is so wide in terms of the cash that is supposedly on him. Aside of that, it seems like he's dating a woman that's married to someone else. So we've got another potential risk factor in here, another possible suspect to be looked at, or person of interest to be considered rather than suspect. And then this third aspect of him looking to move away and start a new life. So is that really about escaping the gang life? Is it about, for some reason, wanting to move away from his family? There's all kinds of different things that could be going on around that. But a lot of warning kind of indicators just in that statement. Authorities initially believed that James traveled to Florida or to Mobile, Alabama after his disappearance and sought work in the construction industry, but now he is considered a probable homicide victim. He has a criminal record and once served time in prison for burglary. His case remains unsolved. And I just want to also take a moment, because I know when some people, I've seen some comments on cases like this where people are like, oh, gang member, we're probably better off without him, or something along those lines. The family certainly doesn't believe that. And we're going to hear it directly from them. But you could also see it if you look at these photos and look at the pain on his mother's face. They deserve answers, and they deserve to have their son back, if that means that we are talking about to have a proper memorial for him. But to know what happened. These people have been living in this, stuck in this for over 20 years. And I would like to hope that most people, I think, that view this content on this channel don't need this kind of talk from me, but I just want to repeat it every time, because I know some people look for, I call them emotional off-ramps. They look at some of this content and they're kind of looking for, because I know it makes us all uncomfortable. Think of how this family feels. Makes us sometimes uncomfortable, and it's really easy to say, he's just a gang member. Shouldn't have been a gang member. That's that. Now I don't have to care anymore. It's not true. And there's a whole ripple. There's a whole circle of people that are living in this and have to care about it on a day-to-day basis. And if for some reason you don't think the missing person needs help, their family certainly does. And there's someone in particular, even outside of his mother and his father, that we're going to learn about that certainly deserves the help and attention. But let's go ahead and continue here. Over at ncmissingpersons.org, they have a profile. A lot of the same information we've already seen, but we're going to lean into a new aspect of this as well. And this is where I saw a particular note that I do think is important, especially based off what we just talked about. He was carrying somewhere between $6,000 and $14,000 in cash on him when he disappeared, as he traveled toward Alabama or Florida to begin a new life away from the gangs. Being very specific, he was looking to change his situation. James's car was found on Interstate 65 near Evergreen, Alabama, over 80 miles from his mother's home in early December of 1998. So we have it found relatively soon, within a few weeks, but about 80 miles from the location. Now, I don't know the original source for this article. This article is actually, I grabbed it just to use the picture in the scrolling box down below of all the different photos. It's from a Facebook page. Of course, I'll have a link to that down below as well, but I didn't know that it was attached to a whole article. So thank you, Bill Kemp, for writing this. And let's go ahead and take a look at what other details we can get from this article. First of all, a little bit of insight into the conflict. Following a small supper-time quarrel, an angry 21-year-old George James left his mother's house in Millbrook on November 23, 1998. His family hasn't heard from him since. A missing persons report was filed with Montgomery City Police in January of 99. So it seems like there was a period of time, but keep in mind how he left. There was kind of this disagreement in the family. He goes storming off. I don't know if there was a pattern of this, if he had disappeared or separated from the family previously for periods of time, but it's likely there's some kind of factor in that in terms of the missing persons report being filed this way. His small red compact car was found abandoned with a blown engine on I-65 near the Evergreen exit in the spring of 99. Let's just go ahead and take a look at a map real quick. So I've got a couple places marked, but Millbrook is it looks like a suburb of Montgomery, and that is where his family was living. We have it about 80 miles south and west is Evergreen. And it's probably this exit, I would imagine, where his car was found with the engine blown. His ex-girlfriend and some friends said that he was seen in Montgomery, said Tillis James, George's mother. She's heard stories that he was working in the Wetumpka eclectic area. So I've got that area also marked on the map, but just based on the directions, kind of strange and quite honestly pretty close to his home. If this is someone that's really looking to escape, if it is the gang situation he's escaping, or if it's the family situation, if for some reason he doesn't want to associate with his family anymore, I don't believe, you're going to try to run away from those things and just go a distance of like 15 or 20 miles. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I don't know about those sightings. And obviously we're here decades later. We still don't know where he is. So these sightings probably not super strong. But other stories that they heard, these stories suggest that he could have been shot in the head over $14,000 of gang money. So 14,000, there's that amount again. Now we're hearing might be related to some of the gang activity as well. If we compound that with the fact, was he dating another member of his gang's wife or something along those lines? Like, we've got a lot of strong interpersonal dynamics that are going on right off the bat. Quote, somebody said they saw him in a red truck. He would have been working construction, said Tillis. I believe that was about the sighting in Wetumpka. After years of grieving and no solid answers, Mrs. Tillis appeared on the Montel Williams show in November of 2002, where she reluctantly agreed to talk with a psychic. I haven't seen the episode. I imagine it might have been Sylvia Brown. She was kind of a regular on Montel Williams, and they were doing this type of content for a while. I won't go into all the details, but ultimately the psychic says that they see him in a well, gives some letters of the well. The family says they hear from friends about, there is a well that's like that. We should go search this. And his mother says, hey, I'm going to go down there myself if we don't get some help searching this. But thankfully, a company is brought out. They do search it. They don't find anything. And that's kind of how it plays out, at least from this article. Jumping over to WSFA.com, a quote from his father, John James. We miss him. We miss him terribly. We miss his smile and his laughter. His parents fear that George's fate was sealed when his car broke down near Evergreen. His car was found on I-65 at the Evergreen exit, broke down, John said. Authorities were able to trace his steps back to one witness, but the trail quickly went cold. Quote, a convenience store clerk remembered him coming to use the phone to call for help, John said. George's family believes the people who picked him up that day were the last to see him. We feel pretty sure he was murdered and robbed, John said. So that's the one question mark I had about the sighting, the confirmed sighting of him using the phone. Doesn't seem like it was really in Montgomery. According to his father, that was a convenience store that was near the off-ramp in Evergreen, so about 80 miles away from where his family would have been. Who did he call? It's a public phone. I don't know what those records are like. I don't know if the investigators looked in that direction. Certainly a big question. If they could pinpoint the time frame that he was at the phone, if there's some way to get those records, and I don't know, like, we haven't had public phones around in so long, and I really haven't looked into cases that have tried to lean on those in terms of records. I imagine there was some note of it somewhere about what phone number was called from there. Did he call back to some friends that he thought could help him that were related to this possible gang activity, or did he call back to some other friends? I don't know. But it seems to me that if your car breaks down, you're probably going to call for a ride from someone. And to go where exactly, I don't know. I mean, we could see, at least knowing where his vehicle is, he was headed, could he have been headed to Florida? Direction looks a little off for that. Looks kind of like he was heading towards Louisiana or to Mobile, like they're pointing out. I think that's part of the consideration why they think Mobile, Alabama was likely his destination. Sure looks like that. The ride that he was asking for, was it someone kind of from his past area? Is it someone else that he was reaching out to? Did he have something lined up to go meet with someone? I don't know. There's a lot of different considerations on this. Back to a quote from his father. "We believe there are people out there that have information on his disappearance, his death, and possibly where his remains might be." And of course, we've got the Montgomery PD's number on the screen. We've got additional contact information for Crime Stoppers if you have to remain anonymous in the description box down below. On top of all that, we just need to raise exposure to this case. We need to make sure that we're getting eyes on these photos that are scrolling below me. So if you could, please take a moment, think, do I have any friends, family, acquaintances that I could share this video with? Please do so, particularly in Alabama. That's what we're looking to do with today's video. Back to newspapers.com, article from November 23rd, 2006. An article with a lot of good details we want to go into, but also a pretty amazing discovery. We're always looking for the bright spots. For his mother, for Tillis, that we can see here in the photo, something pretty amazing happens to her. So this article is talking about the fact that, the holidays are coming up. And of course, that's been a very tough time for them ever since his disappearance. This is on the 8-year anniversary that this article is written. A little additional detail here. They are saying that witnesses described seeing him make a phone call at a convenience store at the Evergreen exit, and someone came and picked him up, and he was never seen again. I'm curious if that's actually true. Where's that information about, like, what type of vehicle came and picked him up? Did anyone note that? I haven't seen anything publicly on that. James said she believes in her heart that her son is dead. "All I want to know is where his body is," she said, her voice cracking. "That's all we want, to find him and bring him home." Lieutenant Keith Barnett, a detective with the Montgomery Police Department, said investigators have had little evidence pointing to what happened to George James. There have been numerous rumors over the years about his alleged death. Quote, "That's the thing. It's all rumors. Things are said to his family or to an acquaintance, and we check it out, but it always fizzles." Authorities do believe that it's likely that George was indeed killed. "He's been missing for so long with no activity. You've got to think that somewhere foul play is involved," Barnett said. "I hope that he does show up alive somewhere, but for now, we've got to expect the worst and hope for the best." They have another photo here of his parents holding missing persons flyers. Tillis James had learned a lot about her son since she last saw him on November 23rd, 1998. Some information, like rumors that he was shot and run over with a car by acquaintances, have been devastating. James received a joyful surprise in the summer of 1999. She was working at Cracker Barrel that summer when one day on a break, she began talking with a young woman who was eating at the restaurant. When the subject of children came up, the young woman showed James a picture of her son, then 3 years old. The boy, Derek, had a wide grin and startling blue eyes, just like James's missing son. Quote, "I told her he looked exactly like baby pictures of my son. She asked my son's name, and I told her George James. The younger woman told a stunned James that George was the boy's father." Is that like, I can't believe that I ran into that and how they're figuring this out. It's amazing to me. "She brought him to Millbrook that day to see us," James said. "We got to see him all the time after that." Derek, now 11, will be at James's house for Thanksgiving with his stepfather, Michael Harsey of Millbrook, who is raising the boy. Derek's half-siblings will also be there. Quote, "I figured if they're part of Derek's family, we should get to know them better," James said. And that's kind of amazing, too, that Derek is helping to bring two families together around this in that way. In another interesting connection, we see that Harsey, who is Derek's stepfather, also knew George as well. Harsey was friends with George James for more than 15 years before his disappearance, and he described him as a good-hearted person. Quote, George was a good person. He just hung out with the wrong crowd. Harsey said Derek thinks about his father often. Sometimes he has dreams about him, Harsey said. He has a picture of George that he keeps with him. It also mentions that Derek has a memory of his father. He did get to meet him once after George was released from prison for the burglary. And it says that he remembers George taking him out back and pushing him on the swing. He also asks anyone that he meets, basically, did you know my dad? Can you tell me more about him? It also goes into some more rumors that Tillis is hearing. James has heard a lot of rumors about what might have happened to her son. Those rumors lead her to believe that George's past may have caught up with him. James said she believes George's accomplices in the burglary may have been involved in his disappearance. She also believes money he received from a married girlfriend to move away and start a new life may have played a part. The accomplices allegedly have bragged about killing George. James said she believes 2 women who were the men's girlfriends at the time of the disappearance are aware of what happened. Quote, there are 2 girls out there who are linked to 2 boys going around bragging about killing him. If just one of them would give an anonymous call to tell me where my son is, I would never bother them again. Barnett confirmed that investigators have questioned some of the people James believes were involved in George's disappearance. All have denied involvement, but police have not given up on this case. The article also notes a bit of a difference that his parents have in terms of what closure would mean for them. For Tillis, she said that it would be burying her son's body near the river that runs behind her home. But her husband says, to me, closure is justice for those who killed him. AL.com has an article from 2019, has a little more information, and it also talks about the Q group and them doing rallies to raise awareness, basically like a tour. And from what I understand, the James family has been part of that regularly for several years. John James hasn't seen his son in nearly 15 years. Here is a quote from Q founder Monica Kazan. After so many years, these cases fade from the public's radar. But for the families and friends of a missing person, the nightmare continues. Every minute of every day their loved one is absent. John James said not knowing what happened to his son is something tragic that we live through every day since. It's an ongoing grief process. We're always wondering what happened and if those responsible for it will be brought to justice. Cold case investigators are looking into James's case again, as the father believes there are people out there who know what happened to his son. The James family recently became involved with Q in an effort to keep George James's case alive. It's important to keep these cases fresh on the public's mind so our missing loved ones won't be forgotten, he said. There are people out there who know what happened. It takes the community working together to find information and solve some of these cases. Absolutely true. And that's why we're here making this video. It does take a community, and it doesn't just have to be a community that's physically close anymore. We can virtualize that. And in terms of just internet connectivity, think about the possibility that tip, maybe there was a conversation on Facebook that someone had. Maybe there was a phone call with a family member in a different state. Raising awareness can help in so many different ways, and it's not just about in that local area anymore. An article from the Montgomery Advertiser posted on October 7th, 2013. A quote, once again from Tillis. We have to keep asking and asking. It's my job to bring my child home. That's all I want is for somebody to call and say, this is where you can find him. We need an army. More than anything, there is somebody out there who knows where my son is. I've done my part. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm bringing him home. Some cases do take an army, and I'm very proud to say that I want to be part of this team too. I want to help raise exposure and see if we can find answers for Tillis and for John about George. But as I was researching this case, I saw another note, and I'm so thankful Someone else I respect very highly, Marissa from the Vanish podcast, looks like this case has caught her attention as well. We have a post from Tillis here on February 12th. The Vanish podcast will be doing an interview with me about George today. Now, as far as I know, I believe they pre-record their stuff. From what I can see, the episode has not been released yet, but as soon as that episode comes out, of course, I'll let you guys know about it over on my Twitter account. And I'm just so thankful. The Vanished is one of the best podcasts out there for missing persons. And I really appreciate them being part of this army and helping with this case as well. Once again, remember, Crime Stoppers of Central Alabama, $5,000 reward. And between them and the Montgomery Police, they're saying that this 23-year search will continue. If you have any information, we've got all the links, all the contact information that you need in the description box down below. But here it is, just in case. The tip hotline, 334-215-STOP. And maybe if you're the person that can help this family, you might be the person that can take home $5,000 on top of that. It's a tough one, brain scratchers. I would like to think that there's a possibility that he took that money and just for some reason had to get away and start a new life, and that's that. But with the car being left behind, we've got witnesses seeing him place a phone call. He gets picked up. We just have questions. What's that next step in the chain? What happened after that? We've got some big concerns with people reportedly running around taking credit for ending his life. Is that people just bragging? Is that information accurate? Once again, we don't know. And it seems like investigators are having trouble getting to the bottom of that. So we need someone that maybe you heard one of those conversations. Maybe you have some additional piece of information that can help support some of these theories in one direction or another and just help this family. This is over 20 years they've been saddled with this. It's really, really, it's just heartbreaking on all fronts. I don't know how else you say it. But I'm really thankful that you're here. I'm really thankful that you've spent this time. Please just take another moment, think, who can I share this with? Outside of that, if you would like to help us raise exposure to this particular case, please hit that upvote, that like button down below. That absolutely helps tell YouTube, oh, I need to show this video to more people. And that's what we need on this case. We need more eyes, ears, and hearts open and looking for George. So I appreciate your help in terms of doing that. Before I end today's video, I want to thank all of my patrons. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel over at patreon.com. But I've got a special shout out for Kelly Terry, who increased their pledge. Thank you so much, Kelly. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or just buy us a coffee like Candy Bishop recently did. We have always been extremely limited in the commercials that we show on these presentations because we don't want to lose people's focus about how important these cases are. So limited ads is something that I'm proud that we've done for 7 years, but we can't do it without your support. So once again, a huge thank you to everyone that does help support the channel. Take care, have a nice weekend, and please come back on Monday for a brand new episode of Case Cracked right here on the Lord and Arts channel.